Hey everybody, this is Perch. We have From the Ashes, a brand new beginning for the X-Men, and you may not be all caught up on some of the comics, so let's go ahead and review and recap, catch up to date on these series. And we'll start with NYX, and we've got the first two issues by the team of Kelly and Lansing, and this comic purports not to be a team, but really the setting, surrounding, romance, and excitement of New York City, including the good parts and the grimy parts, with superheroes just kind of caught in the middle of its exciting fray. So let's see what we got going on in NYX #1. First thing you got to know before you get into the series is generally, at least for a while, we're going to be spending an issue focused on one character. And in the first issue, you're going to get Miss Marvel. In the second, you get Laura Kinney, the Wolverine. So in issue #1, we get a little bit of recap of how we got here, of the mutants hanging out in New York City. Immediately jump into the action with Miss Marvel walking her way to school from Jersey City. She's using her embiggening powers to basically just hop across the bridge. And while she's doing this, she's leaving a message for her side piece, Bruno, who apparently has gone off to school in some other semester. She's doing a big humble brag of the fact that she's back in Empire State University with a really cool program, and he should be super jelly by everything that's going on. The new curriculum is totally mutant-centric, which in her words is a big step up from a campus that was basically run by anti-mutant genocidal monsters last year. Arriving to school, she immediately runs her ass into Sophie Cuckoo, who's one of those quadruplets of crazy girls who were under the tutelage of Emma Frost. They form somewhat fast friends when Kamala Khan says what a big fan she is, and they head off to class together. Their first class is a study of mutant philosophy from Prodigy. Now, listen to him laying down the logic in his class. Mutants were an endangered community that had spent an inordinate amount of time doing one thing above all else, protecting its oppressor. This is essentially inarguable, no matter what some of your parents think. The government of the United States financed the creation of and actually deployed giant killer robots against the mutant population. They were killing us, hunting us always. And yet we protected them in the most colorful outfits we could manage, looking brilliant under the weight of the entire world. That was Charles Xavier's dream. We take it forever. Despite what the news would have you believe, Krakoa was inevitable. It was necessary. I'm going to ask every one of you in this class to respect that and treat it with empathy. But what was Krakoa, and what will become of its cultural institutions, its language, its religion, integrates with the human world? In this class, that's exactly what will be. Anyway, that's his speech, and really, that's going to set the tone of his character, trying to explain the mutant nation of Krakoa.
Fuck.
Sophie and Miss Marvel kind of shit all over that, and then leave school, with Miss Marvel saying she's got to go home to do some homework. But Sophie, being the amazing influence she is, says, hey, instead, why don't we go sneak into an adult club, and I'll use my superpowers to brainwash the bouncer, which she does. She gets in to find Enoli is the bartender. Now, this seems a little weird because I think the kid is somewhere between the ages of 14 and 30, but who knows? Anyway, they immediately start to hang out when a bunch of racists come up who are saying that there's mutie terrorists, and they start harassing the whole crew. Now, in this moment, I do have a question. Is it racism or speciesism? Because technically, are the mutants a different species? That's what the other X-Men title written by Jed MacKay is saying, but who knows? Anyway, after a brief altercation, Miss Marvel and Sophie are thrown out on their ass by the bouncer because she apparently forgets she's a telepath for a minute. Concluding all of this, Miss Marvel swings away to go look and hunt for crime. Sophie decides to go back to the bar while we meanwhile catch up with Prodigy, who's hanging out with his boyfriend in an apartment. Just as he's laying down some more logic with her, she gets attacked by Wolverine, who says she's a little bitch. As she's reeling from that revelation, she's suddenly attacked by the Krakoan, who starts throwing around trains and buildings on people. They have a brief fight in which Miss Marvel basically saves the day and hooks back up with friend Sophie, goes home for the night. She's later dismayed to learn that her family are scared about all those dangerous muties. Meanwhile, we catch back up with the Krakoan, who's gone to some big-ass tower in New York, and he's hanging out with Empath, and the rest of Sophie's sisters, the Stupford Cuckoos. Krakoan is basically Hellion, and that's where we leave the issue. They're doing silly things like making human waiters stand on their hands and knees and balance food on their head. Anyway, this is all about New York, is what Jackson Lansing and Colleen Kelly say in the afterword. We then hop over to issue number 2. Issue number 2 features Laura Kinney Wolverine, as I mentioned earlier. So what she's up to? Well, kind of picking up from her brief appearance in the previous issue, she's fighting down the Truth Seekers, which is apparently the new random human anti-mutant group that runs around with ski masks on their head. Basically abducting mutants, or so Laura thinks, but that when the mutant she's trying to save basically tells her to get the fuck out, she goes back to her house to stare into the mirror for a while. On the trail for trying to figure out what's going on, she dresses down in her old prostitute outfit from several years ago and heads into a club. There, she meets another mutant called Local, who has the power of basically sending electric maps of New York City out of his fingers. So they decide to go out and hang after Laura says that she can get her hand burnt and heal it from a candle. They basically decide to test her by having her steal a car, which she easily does, then hook a free ride in the subway. Finally, they show up at the college at Empire State University and tell her she's got to steal some crazy-ass gadget inside of it. She does, but immediately runs into Prodigy, who's like, "Damn, bitch, what happened to you?" Taking this stolen goods back to the hideout, there, Laura gets introduced to Mr. Friend. Anyway, when they get there, Mr. Friend seems super creepy and shitty, and very quickly it's revealed that he is just kind of a meat puppet, facade for Mojo, who's been hanging out in this place and loves to abuse mutants. Laura is like, fuck no, not you. But she's quickly stabbed in the face and then burned alive with a torch. Mojo's like, "You suck," and throws her out the window. Laura then dives into the alley where she sits and huddles in a dirty corner, waiting for her skin to regrow. Once she does this, she puts back on her whole clothes, goes back to the club, and decides to dance with her friends, because that's what's important in life. And that's pretty much it. In the second issue, we get another little afterword from the editor, who's basically saying this story is all about New York, and this book is a joy to make because it's an opportunity to explore the central questions of both mutantum and youth, and because of how it illuminates a layer of Marvel's New York into existence. That close but not quite version of the city where NYX cast lives feels as close in my mind as a version that existed when I lived there at 18. Out of reach, but no less real. Which basically tells me that the editor was not allowed to get into them clubs, but didn't have any of those psychic powers that Sophie did, so had to hang out in the alleys. Anyway, that's NYX number 1 and 2, and now you're caught up. Thanks for listening.